Hi everyone, my name is Leanne and today I'm bringing you a book haul. Look, we've been here before. I get my TBR down and then I'm like, oh, I guess I'll buy more books now. In my defense, I don't need to defend myself. I can own as much shit as I want. But in my defense, I didn't actually buy many of these. A lot of these were sent to me. Am I also about to move house? Yes, I am. But most of these books arrived into my life before I knew I was going to be moving house. I was very kindly sent 3 books by Bonnier. So I have A Snowflake by Louise Nealon. This is one of those books that is getting comped to normal people, but it's just by a young woman from Ireland. This is about a girl in Ireland who moves from the countryside to live in Dublin where she's attending Trinity College. Okay, I kind of get where the Rooney vibes are coming from. And you may have also seen this book in my recent 5-star predictions video, which I will leave linked down below in the description and in the cards if you haven't seen it yet. Next I have Hope Nicely's Lessons for Life by Caroline Day. I don't know too much about this one. I know it is about a 25-year-old woman, I think. And as well as this being a book about her day-to-day general life, she's also dealing with a lot of feelings in the background about being abandoned in a cardboard box when she was a baby. This book also has stuff to do with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, which I don't think I've ever read a book about that kind of experience before. This book wasn't really on my radar, but the publicist totally sold it to me, so I'm very excited to read this one. One that I have already read and I absolutely loved, if you want to hear my full thoughts on it, my wrap-up will be linked, is The Couple by Helly Acton. Helly Acton is the author of The Shelf, which is a book that I read last year and really enjoyed. It was such a fun time, and I had the same kind of experience reading this book. This is a book that is about a society that is kind of alternate to our own in that it is the norm to be single, and it's seen as very unusual to be in a couple. Like, the whole world is catered towards single people in the way that our whole society is catered towards being in a couple, and it's advantageous to be a couple. That is totally flipped in this book. As I said, my wrap-up will be linked if you want to hear my full thoughts on this one. This next one was very kindly sent to me by Bloomsbury, and that is The End of the World is a Cul-de-sac by Louise Kennedy. This is a collection of short stories by an Irish writer, so, you know, obviously I'm there for it. These are meant to be like really well crafted, really visceral, diving into Irish folklore and politics. This is ticking so many boxes for me. I think I have read a short story from Louise Kennedy before in one of the like new Irish short story collections I've read, but I would be really intrigued to read a whole collection from her. Let's do a little bit of non-fiction now. Next I have Think Like a Breadwinner by Jennifer Barrett. This was very kindly sent to me by Bookbreak and it is published by Bluebird. This is a book that is about teaching women how to take charge of their finances, how to become the breadwinner, how to learn more about money, how to make the most of the money that they earn. I'm very keen to read more books around taking charge of my finances because I've never really had finances before, and now I do, and I don't really know how to finance. Like, I've always known how to budget because I've always had to budget, but in terms of like saving, I've never had anything to save. I think this book is going to be really helpful. Next I have Border Nation by Leah Cohen. This was sent to me by Pluto Press, who are one of my favorite non-fiction publishers. They are like a left-wing radical publisher, and this book is part of their Outspoken series. And if you were around this channel last year, you may remember me raving about this series of books. They were all up in my favorite non-fiction books of 2020. This is a book that is all about borders, how they impact our lives, colonial origins of borders, what it means to cross these borders, how difficult it can be to cross these borders, and particularly how that has been impacted in the aftermath of the EU referendum and Brexit. I think this series of books is a really great way to become educated on topics without any of it being diluted or watered down. Highly recommend this series of books. When I found out there was another book coming out in the series, I was like, please, give it to me. Very quickly, I'm going to whiz through some books that I got from work. I have A Foot Love Story by Lone Lee. This book is about 2 teenagers whose family own 2 rivaling Vietnamese restaurants. And it's like a forbidden love story between these two because their families hate each other. But as you progress through the story, you realise that there is depth to this rivalry that isn't just about the restaurants. And all of the like cute couple moments in this book are so swoony. I did read this one last month, so again, if you check out my wrap up, you can get my full thoughts on this one. Next, I have a middle grade book, and that is How I Saved the World in a Week by Polly Ho Yen. This book is about the relationship between a young boy and his mother is preparing him for some big event, some kind of dangerous, ominous event that is coming. So she's teaching him like all of these survival skills around like tying knots and starting fires. One day she takes it too far and the people around them decide that she needs some sort of help. So this young boy is sent to live with his dad, who he doesn't know very well, and eventually we realise that his mother knew something that everyone else wasn't paying attention to. Next, I have Hide and Secrets by Sophie Mackenzie. Sophie Mackenzie is probably most well known for Girl Missing and being in this kind of like teen thriller genre. She's kind of doing it before Holly Jackson was, before Karen M. McManus was. This is about a teen girl whose father has gone missing and he is assumed dead. Neither this girl's mother nor her sister are really communicating with her. But when a new family move in across the street, this girl strikes up a friendship and maybe something more with the boy that is living there. And they go off on a trip together to try and find out what has happened to this girl's father, and they end up unraveling a lot more than they expected to. Next is a book that came into my possession in a slightly roundabout way. This is All This Has Nothing to Do With Me by Monica Saballo. So when I left my previous job, I hadn't been in the office for like 9 months because of like COVID and working from home, and all of my stuff was still in my locker at work. And to be honest, I had kind of forgotten about my locker. I didn't think there was anything like hugely important in there. I knew that there was like a pencil case and a few books in there, but you know, there was, if I didn't need it for 9 months, there was nothing that important in there. So I kind of just forgot about my locker, and then I got an email from HR at my old work and they were like, oh, we want to send you the contents of your locker. So this box arrived and it had a lot of stuff in it. There were a few books in there that I kind of just had in my locker as like samples. And this book was in there, which I had completely forgotten about. I completely forgot it existed. And it was the only one of the books that came from my locker that I decided to keep. And all I really know is that it is Parisian. It is an unrequited love story that is told in fragments. That's all I know, but I kept it and it's quite short as well. I was gifted 2 books by 2 very lovely friends. What's a Girl Gotta Do by Holly Bourne was gifted to me by the wonderful Victoria over at What Victoria Read, who is the kindest, most generous, lovely person. She has gifted me the entire Spinster trilogy and I'm just so happy that I now own these books. I completely adored this final book in the trilogy and I reviewed it in my wrap up, so again, that will be linked. I won't tell you too much about it because I've reviewed it. And I have Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, which I am so excited to read. This was gifted to me by Shannon over at 155 Books, and I will leave Shannon and Victoria linked down below in the description as well. If you're not subscribed to those amazing ladies, then what are you doing with your life? All I know is that this book is about like a girl who's quite like geeky, she's like into computers, and it is sexy. That's all I know, but everyone seems to love it. I was never much of a reader of sexy books, but I have been converted. Very much looking forward to seeing if this one lives up to the hype. And finally, I have 5 poetry collections to talk to you about. I used to read a lot more poetry than I now do, and I've kind of decided that I want to start getting back into writing poetry. It was something that I used to do a lot of and haven't really made the time for in recent years, and I always found the way to feel inspired to write was to read poetry. So that's what I'm hoping to do. The first collection I have is a zine, which is Overshare by Charlotte L. Frears, or as you may know her, Char from Thoroughly Enjoyed Books. Char deals with a lot of really emotionally heavy topics in this collection, such as bipolar disorder type 2, and also topics around breakups and very traumatic experiences as well. Again, this is one that I've already reviewed, and I will leave Char linked down below as well. These 4 collections I picked up in one of my favourite bookstores in Dublin, and they were doing like massive reductions on quite a lot of poetry, so all 4 of these collections I got for €1.99 each, which was just a sign from the poetry gods that I needed to read more poetry. So I have Stone Dress by Shirley MacLaire. This is by an Irish poet, and I believe her poems are quite sexy and quite funny, but also deals with the heavy topics of grief and illness and loss. All of things that I'm totally here for. I also have Slow Bruise by A.D. and Henry. I don't really know anything about this collection as a whole. I had not heard of this poet before, but I did flick to the very first poem in the collection, gave it a quick read, and I was like, yes, I would like to read more of this. I have Mandeville by Matthew Francis. So this is a collection that is about the travels of Sir John Mandeville, the like middle-aged story, which doesn't necessarily sound like it's something that would be up my street, but Matthew was one of my lecturers when I studied at Aberystwyth University, and I've read a couple of his collections before, and he's a fantastic poet, so when I saw this I was keen to read more. And finally I have The Casual Perfect by Lavinia Greenlaw. Again, this is a collection that I hadn't really known anything about, didn't know anything about the poet, but I flicked to the first one and had a read, and I was like, yes please, I would like to read more of this. And I think somehow that's kind of the best way to pick up poetry. Just read as much as you can, read as broadly as you can, read things that you're not sure about, because it will all like feed into you as a poet and inspire you in some way. Reading lots of different styles will help you figure out your own style, even if it's not to like your particular tastes. I think just read as much as you can is a really great way to explore your own writing. Before I go, there is one thing we need to do. I need to let you know what my physical TBR is at. It is at this number. Let's just see where it is at the end of the month. Have you read any of these books? What did you think about them? Leave any thoughts you have down below in the comments. And if you don't want to talk about anything in particular, just leave me one of your favorite emojis so I know that you're here. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will speak to you in my next video.